Fifth and final match for today. It is our featured match. Fino taking on Seiko in this one. Both players' records on life support and desperately need wins. There below, you can see the pick and ban process that took place. That Divine Shield around a class means that it's been protected. So on Seiko's side, he has protected his Paladin. Fino has protected the Priest deck. And then on Seiko's side, his Priest has been banned away. Very common when a non-Priest protect comes in. And on Fino's side, his Paladin's been banned away. So looking at Fino's remaining decks, Druid, Warrior, and Priest versus Seiko, who's got Shaman, Druid, and Paladin. This is a very interesting one where the bans and protects are just inversed, I think simply because of the Warrior that's in play here.
Yeah, the Warrior is a huge difference on Fino's side because he does have the Double Weapons Project, he does have the Harrison Jones, so that has a big impact on the Paladin matchup, as well as, of course, whether or not you have a deck to fight against Priest. Most people would agree that whether or not they think the Control Warrior matchup is favored, most people agree it's about the best deck that you can have in terms of trying to beat Priest consistently. So that does have a huge impact on things.
Also, kind of looking at Seiko's lineup, he doesn't really have anything that answers the Paladin straight away.
Depending on how you feel on the Druid matchup, I guess. Which he does have the Mali Druid, which I think we would both agree is even slightly better than the Quest Druid against Holy Wrath Paladin.
Yeah, I'm not convinced Quest Druid's that good versus Holy Wrath Paladin.
No, I'm not either.
I keep losing from the Druid side.
Okay.
And, well, I mean, I keep losing from the Paladin side as well, but, you know, hashtag Christology. It's a matchup where I feel like the straight up Quest version is much more vulnerable to what Paladin can throw at it.
I agree. I think having the ability to just threaten 12 from hand with Malagos and Moonfires, and if you do manage to get to the late game and you get your release down, then suddenly the Paladin player not only has to think about, well, has he duplicated his healing and been able to out-heal me, but also, can he just throw damage at me and end the game?
Yeah, I think in the Malagos versions, the out-healing is a little bit more prevalent, because as they continue to hold cards, you have to do guessing on their hand ranges. Are they holding healing, or are they holding damage?
Yep.
Either way, it's going to occupy mana. So both players leading off with their protected decks. And we saw this matchup flipped earlier in the season where Seiko had this same matchup rather, earlier in the season where Seiko was aggressively fighting for board against Fino.
Oh, yeah, I remember. So, yeah, we were talking about this earlier, and I said that I didn't remember this matchup. But now that you point that out, yes, I absolutely do remember that. It was so weird looking, but so right looking also at the same time.
Yeah, it looked very correct, but at the same time, Fino didn't have this kind of start. As you know, apologize for the camera feed on Fino's end. We're going to get this settled and sorted as quickly as we can.
Let me think.
Seiko wasn't facing down this early of a start on Fino's side.
Right.
And so that changes a lot of what's happening in the matchup, where suddenly you look at this banker, it's not battling for board now, it's kind of just giving up things to Fino at this point.
Same deal, though. He just plays it out, fights for the board. This is what gave him success earlier in the season. He's just playing his minions and fighting one for board for as long as he can.
And so for Fino, I'm very interested in an early interfire here.
Make a 3/3, trade, and then drop the Ritualist?
I want to... Well, you can't do those both.
Oh, I mean, setting up for that on a future turn. Like, do you want a Circle of Healing now alongside that?
That's a tough question. The reason I want a Circle of Healing is as weird as this sounds, it's in fear of Elven Archer.
Elven Archer, yeah.
But more importantly, it's the fear of if my opponent has Wild Pyromancer and top decks Christology.
Okay.
That's definitely one of the thoughts that's on my mind. For Fino, though, he does have multiple ways to get around this, and I think that taking card draw can be wise. Like, Priest early game is still tough. It's very powerful, but it's very tough.
Yep. I do
so
think when
much
you
weight to the decisions.
just really start breaking down the two options there, the Interfire just looks a lot more appealing than the Nephicet Ritualist in the position. Like, the difference is one entire Light Warden that's just being used as a massive beat stick against your opponent. It's a huge, huge deal.
Seiko has continued to opt for the Soup Vendor over the Acolyte of Pain. I've played a lot with both. I don't really notice much of a difference.
Yeah, so I agree with that statement, and then extend that through to why I generally prefer Soup Vendor, because I think they usually draw about the same amount of cards. But Soup Vendor doesn't let your opponent abuse you sometimes by drawing lots of cards when you don't want them to. It's also costs 1 less, so sometimes when you just need to get a card out of your hand because you have too many cards, Soup Vendor is easier to do that with.
Fino's turn is massive with that silence pickup. He's included 2 copies this week. I think it's the right call.
Agree.
Ritualist comes down.
Very much Team 2 silence right now. Fino takes the value trade and heal for the extra card over the extra damage from the cleric going face, which is smart because it also protects this Light Warden on board.
I am looking at some pretty massive potential here from Fino. So if Fino wants to show respect to how Seiko's battled for board, Consecration's one of your thoughts. Fino, however, I know, likes to say, if you're going to consecrate my board and clear something, take damage. And so Consecration in this spot, when you flip the Light Warden, means that it's taking out a Northshire Cleric. That's it.
Yep. I'm not sure how bad a Consecration was there for you is my only concern, since you have the Psychopomp just to follow up. Like, your 2 minions that will be dying there are your Light Warden and your Northshire Cleric, right? And they would be the only 2 minions then that have died this turn.
Yeah.
Sorry, this game. So you're then dropping Psychopomp and getting one of those back. My slight nagging concern is that you've now used a Topsy-Turvy and 1 Inner Fire to not do enormous amounts of damage so far, so you might just be forced out of the game if you can't find that last one. If you're protecting your Northshire Cleric longer, you draw more cards. You find that last Inner Fire and the Divine Spirits much more often.
This Light Warden's going to get big real quick.
Yep.
Oh, okay, I see.
I wonder.
No, I'm still curious. I don't know why this bump face. Is it specifically Shrink Ray and Equality?
Quickly.
Sorry, what are you asking?
I'm sorry, with the Northshire Cleric bumped.
Yeah.
It's specifically health adjustments?
I guess so, yeah. Quality and Shrink Ray.
That attack is about drawing cards.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
That Powered Shield made a circle of healing appear, which suddenly
boy.
makes trading with things a lot more attractive.
Fino, honestly, like, watching Fino play this game, it feels like he's back in where he was in Season 1, which is like, how do I just deal the most damage to my opponent?
How do I just play my cards and make my opponent die?
Seriously, like, I feel like, you know, he expressed that he's trying to stay calm and has a positive attitude in these situations, but, you know, I think back to the big blunder that he had earlier in the season. He did not look calm in that match. He did not look like he was having a good time.
No.
And I think you take all that into account this week, and it looks like he's back into his normal form. Play a bunch of stuff and start attacking. You better have it.
Right now, it looks like he's having a great time. Look at that. Look at that majestic boy down in the bottom left.
I mean, his plays look phenomenal.
Damn it.
You can't escape it. It's going to happen.
I can't, no.
Yeah, I mean, we're in timeout territory, and there's not much progress that's been made from Seiko's side.
No, and that flash of light looks weird, but he has to do it. He needs to cycle. He's going to time out that turn anyway, so the buff on the Light Wardens don't matter. He just needs to find a Quality or Shrink Ray from these remaining 17 cards in his deck. 16 at the time of the flash of light. Sorry, what? 18 at the time of the flash of light?
No.
That's not how numbers work.
No, it is.
Oh, okay.
I've got more left in me.
That British comedy show. That's number one.
That's number one.
14.
No, that wasn't number one.
Well, you didn't even respond with a number. I think that's exactly
No,
what the number
I'm
one
the
happens.
host. You're trying to guess number one.
63?
No.
22.
No.
25.
That's number one.
4, however, is not.
Nope.
Game 1 Fino.
Quick as you like, early curve, aggression, no clears in hand for Seiko, and he was not able to fight back against that. He played it right. He was just digging. That early Baleful Banker, he's the only player we see do that, and I'd be interested to go back and see if anyone's had the opportunity to do that, right? Because obviously, like, if you're going to have a Novice Engineer in your hand, you're probably going to play the Novice Engineer. But if you don't, I'm not sure if any other player has had the option to just go turn 2 Baleful Banker, but we've seen Seiko do it twice, and it's such an interesting thing to see in that particular matchup.
Look what it forced on Fino's side. He needed to have an attack buff.
Yep.
And without that attack buff, that meant the Light Warden was traded off.
It makes sense. I mean, last game we saw it, and I believe he ended up winning the game. Like, we both loved the way he was playing.
Oh,
like,
yeah. He fought super aggressive.
It was so weird, and like, we were like freaking out trying to process some of these plays that he was making. But when we really dug into it and saw the logic, we're like, yeah, this is brilliant. This is brilliant. He's just playing his minions. I know that sounds weird, but like, it kind of is in that matchup.
Biggest thing.
Yep.
Don't
go face. Biggest thing, trade into your opponent's thing that's going to kill you.
Holy Wrath Paladin goes face all in one turn is the thing. Yeah. It's one big face attack that happens. I personally I love that deck, and honestly, watching Seiko battle on it, like when he's focused and in form, like he's one of the best that's out there. But either way, Fino takes game number 1 in this one, and these players are battling on life support to try to fight back from the records they have right now. So we got to go to a break, and when we come back, game number 2 of our 5th and final match today. Stay tuned.
Legends say powerful treasures are hidden everywhere here in Aldum.
If we hope to defeat Rafam, we'll need as many as we can get. He's already unleashed the ancient plague lords and countless monsters. Keep them distracted, Reno.
Not a problem. This plan is totally gonna work. Ain't that right, Finley?
Oh, yes! I have them right where I want them.
There is an artifact here. The name is...
The Scales of Justice. Oh, it must be really fancy.
only to be used in a time of great peril. Yes, I think this qualifies.
Hey, look, Finley. You've lured one of the Plague Lords.
Take this, fiend!
In the face! Yeah! Hey, guys, get that treasure. We've got a Plague Lord to destroy.
Yes, please, hurry!
Not to worry, Finley. We just push this thing right here.
No, that's a trap! Watch out!
It's all good. I am phonily timed.
Gracious me!
What we actually need to do is press this. And there. A fish.
No! It's the Scales of Justice!
Ah, who wants to use it first? Oh, I do. Me. On second thought, maybe give it to Finley?
All you had to do was hold a rope.
Here we go, blaming the tall, ruggedly handsome guy again.
My name is Christos Sakopoulos. My username comes from when I was a kid. I used to go to like an internet cafe with my friends to play like, I remember WoW and stuff like that. And I just had to make a character one day, and one of my friends said, your plays are phenomenal, so you can just put the name Fenomeno there. And I just did it, and then it just stuck. The thing that's unique about my playstyle, I feel, is that I sometimes think about stupid plays that other people would never even consider, and I try to get something out of it. I think people don't pay attention to details like trading or going face. I really pay attention to those things, because I think it's super important. Like even one bad trade can cost you the game a lot of times. My favorite memory was definitely when I won my first Hearthstone tournament last year in HCT Orange County. And doing that just gave me so much more confidence and made me feel like I was free again. I'd say being in Grandmasters means that I've made it to the top players of Europe, which has always been my goal. So yeah, I'm looking forward to start competing again.
Welcome back to Hearthstone Grandmasters. We're amidst our 5th and final match for Europe here today, but we got America's. That's coming up afterwards. I'm Nathan, that's Admiral Zamora, joined by Simon Soto-Welch, and right now, Fino is off to a 1-0 lead. Got a win on his Priest over the Paladin, where, again, Seiko opened up with a bit more aggression onto the board to try to contest, but didn't end up getting there in the end.
No, and as we mentioned before, we have seen that work out for him in the past, and it does seem quite unique in terms of the way that he plays the matchup. But when we saw it the first time, we're like, yeah, this just makes sense. Like, why sit back and let them build up their board and buff it, and then you have to panic with timeouts if you can just fight them off with Baleful Bankers and Elven Archers in the early game, as weird as that sounds.
It's a weird fantasy book.
It just so happened that he just didn't really have the curve to follow it up anyway, ended up having to panic with the timeouts regardless, and that clear just wasn't there, just wasn't in the top half.
Yep, and now we have Shaman on Seiko side taking on the Druid from Fino's side. So game number 2 of our featured match is going to be getting underway shortly. For Fino, he has brought Quest Druid here this week, and it's looking like a pretty standard, straightforward list. Has a lot of the 2-ofs that I really like in it. Namely Ferocious Howl and Worthy Expedition. Becoming a big fan of Worthy Expedition. I was not a fan of this card originally.
Really? That's interesting to me. The card that I've never personally been a fan of is the Power of the Wild, which is the card that's missing from Fino. So I'm actually a big fan of the list that he does have.
I originally was a fan of Power of the Wild, and I've since become not much of a fan of Power of the Wild.
Interesting.
So is Worthy Expedition directly taking that spot? Do I just like cheaper?
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, I know we've had this weird semantic discussion various times, but they're kind of directly equivalent, right? In terms of what the extra... It's like Ferocious Howls, Worthy Expeditions, and Power of the Wilds are kind of fighting all of each other for spots. That's why I look at it as.
In my mind, Ferocious Howl is not fighting for a spot. It's core.
Fair enough.
People who cut one of those, they're just doing it wrong.
Fair enough.
That's my perspective.
Fair enough.
Early Evil Totem. We'll see if this can prompt Fino to take action.
Saw this exact thing in the Bunny Hopper series previously, except it was a Titanic Lackey being handed over and not a Witchy Lackey, which makes
True Fino fashion.
all the difference.
Play the Bloodfed Raptor.
Fino responds by playing his cards.
Seiko's going to respond by playing his cards.
Then what?
Depends.
Okay. No Kobold Lackey.
It's a...
Yikes.
Is this a nod to Halloween coming up? All these witchy lackeys. I mean, we're still like 6 weeks out. I mean, I know that the stores put up all the decorations, 3 months early now, but
You play off curve with the 2-drop here?
I am very much interested in putting things in play more so than I am Ferocious Howling this turn. I do have some interest in deviating off the quest progress in that spot. I feel like leaving the 3 in play means that Witchy Lackey can happen again sometimes.
Yeah, so this playing the extra minion here also enables Mogu Witchy Lackey. I think you almost know your opponent. You know your opponent has a limited range of lackeys in terms of what the one on the far left is, because it was not played on turn 2 with the quest after it came off the Evil Totem.
Not Faceless, not Titanic.
Right. So Witchy Lackey goes into that equation.
Wasn't Ethereal either. I think Ethereal would have been very likely to be played.
And then just add to that 3 more lackeys in your opponent's hand.
I think Seiko, knowing Seiko, would have played Goblin Lackey. That leaves me exactly to Witchy Lackey and Kobold Lackey then. Kobold Lackey didn't hit the Zephyrus. Ouchies.
This was a Hearthstone turn, Admirable.
Yeah, Fino gonna die.
Seiko played his cards.
I'm like going through the motions of like deducing the logic on that Lackey to exactly Witchy Lackey, and meanwhile he's just making a Grom and smashing his face.
Yep.
Well, that swipe's not very fun. I'll pull 5 attack on the board and add 6 more to the other side.
Yep. It's worth knowing, now we're over the hype of the Grom, going back to the cold, hard analysis. With that many lackeys in hand, even if Fino doesn't put the extra minion on board, if there's one Faceless Lackey, that cheats the situation back to where Seiko can do all this stuff anyway.
Yeah. Ooh, Fino's super dead.
Real dead.
I mean, I think your best chance to get back into this is to swipe. Ooh, yeah, it feels bad.
I don't want to. You can't make me. You're not my dad.
Time waits for no one.
Fino does have a mind control tech that could be a nod to...
War Druid Loti. 2 worthy expeditions to find War Druid Lotis.
If this is another Grom, I'm done.
Bubble, Bubble, I'll make you a real toy.
It's unusual you hear that guy twice in the same day.
Drink
Neither
with
time
me,
was he played.
Yeah, good point.
So, let's do it again.
Again. 9 drop.
9s are scary.
Yep. That,
Just +2/+2.
that fits the description. Hope you didn't have anywhere to be, Fino, because you're playing a 3rd game.
There is little time.
That is essentially just a 2 damage AoE Starfall. The target 7,
Well,
well, the target 5 does very little.
I do think it opens up a possibility.
Okay. I'm listening.
You're taking a lot of damage on the other side, but you're not dead. And so I think a lot of it depends on how Seiko's going to fight through whatever you throw at him next. So, like, if you nourish, you have a Ferocious Howl, you had to bait it out. If you hit an Oasis, how does Fino trade? I'm sorry, how does Seiko trade? So that tells me that you go with the draw cards, innervate Ferocious Howl. You're searching for exactly War Druid Loti. Loti Starfall clears the board.
All right.
Time waits for no one.
Now, I'm looking at Seiko's hand. That's easy for me to figure out. If you're in Fino's spot, not so much. This opens up to Starfall Swipe instead, so you get to take the damage off the board immediately.
You can still Loti. He can still do the same thing as well, like Loti Starfall on
Yeah.
the following turn anyway, because he has the flute. Like this is just taking 8 less damage.
Smart.
Yeah. So 4, 5, 6, 9, 10, 16, 19 currently. I couldn't fit that all in anyway. Can't double up the Life Drinker and play the Lightning Bolt on top of that. So just the 16. Wait. Start that turn at 23. 10, 13, 14, 15, 16, 19. Okay. It's just checking Lightning Bolt your own Grom.
I counted it a lot
Okay.
of different ways. I came up with the same conclusion you did.
Okay.
But now Fino has a Breath of Life, perhaps. He needs to fade a Kobold Lackey on the following turn. Is there better heal-up potential? Like, if you hit an Oasis and Ferocious Howl.
Job's done.
There's no way to know what that random spell in Seiko's hand is. We're seeing its Lightning Bolt. And so for Seiko, Kobold Lackey, Kobold Lackey, Kobold Lackey. That's the one you want. Sato, you called for game 3,
I
but
did.
Seiko needs a draw.
I did.
I would have called for game 3 as well. I thought he was done. Kobold Lackey, and game 3 it is.
Never worried. Not for a second was I worried.
Whew!
I think I've ever been wrong in my life, Admirable.
Fino almost recovered from a double Mogu
He did. That was really
Evolve
sick.
hand.
Yeah. The Nourish turn to go fishing was definitely the play to go for there. I think a lot of people would have just said, all right, I guess hit an Oasis and just hope I stay alive. But he went digging for that Loti. The Loti was the card that we were focusing on for a number of turns at that point, or the worthy expeditions to get themselves to be Lotis later on. He found the line that kept him alive, and it, like you said, it would almost flipped entirely on its head, where like that was the one outer for Seiko to really find his way out, and then Fino would have started to take control of the game.
I look at that 9-mana turn and I wonder, could things have been different? Like if you Ferocious Howl and hit an Oasis there, you restore 6, 18 health. Your stuff gets tanked by the board, but like Gained 18 health. Like, what are you going to die to?
Wait, what turn are we talking about?
The turn 9, where he went the Lodi in Starfall. If he goes Ferocious Howl, Hidden Oasis, what happens instead?
Did he have the mana to do that? I thought
he had 9 mana, didn't he?
We just nourished. He nourished
No,
that turn.
after the Nourish.
Okay.
So he uses the Lodi the turn he nourishes, runs into the Onyxia. Gets
Right.
tanked in the face
I
down to
see.
7.
Okay. Interesting. So that turn you just Ferocious Howl, you nourish, you gain. It's a Ferocious Howl and Oasis, and you gain 1,000,000.
You gain, I believe you gain exactly 17.
And your opponent still... okay, I mean, I can see it, yeah, but...
You go to 24 with a 6/6 taunt in the way?
Yeah. But I think...
that's a big difference.
That board clear with... the Loti still in play, your opponent didn't have lackeys in hand, and they'd already used a bunch of lackey generators, so they have to have the lackey generator plus a cheap enough spell to kill you on top of a kobold lackey. Like, clear board, then heal up afterwards is generally the way around you want to do things.
There's one thing that I've always said about Fino in that position, and it's that he plays around catastrophic effects. In 2018, I noticed it happening constantly. He would take weaker turns to play around catastrophic things happening. Now, the kicker to the catastrophic thing there is a lackey producing a spell, which produces a Bloodlust. Like, you're going to die to that. You know, having a way to do something crazy with the Grom, like, you're going to take a lot of damage. And so I think both ways you slice it, there's, you know, big outcomes on Seiko's hidden range where bad things happen. And I think you got to pick one and go for it. He picked the life total one, and it just happened Seiko had a Lightning Bolt in hand.
Yep.
So now game 3, Fino on Druid. Seiko on Paladin. The old double Christology opening. I'm always very prompted to use Christologies before I draw cards if I have them available. Like, I will actively take just kind of worse turns to do it.
I think especially with this hand in particular, it does seem important because he's drawn a bunch of 1-cost minions already. Like with the first Christology, and then he's already got a Novice Engineer in his hand. Suddenly, if he naturally draws like a Crystal Smith Kangor or something, then that Christology can start losing its effect.
And so the thing to me says then, on this turn, you account for hand space to use your mana best.
Spend 2, yep.
Then the next turn, Christology, draw a card.
Yep.
Use the slow draw.
It's interesting. So I was playing this matchup in practice versus you with TJ and Frodan spectating, and Frodan asked me the question of why I played Novice Engineer in a very similar situation to this. Answer was, I don't know. I feel like Blood Mage Consecration might be relevant later in the game. If if it saves me a clear, if I can make do with Spell Power Consecration and not have to use an Equality or a Shrink Ray or something like that. But this is like kind of classic Freeze Mage mentality, right? Is that you use the slow draw now because later in the game, in Freeze Mage terms, you can play a Novice Engineer and it immediately drew you a Frost Nova, and then you Frost Nova and then you put it off the top, whereas that doesn't quite work the same way with Blood Mage Thalnos.
Yeah, it's like when the spell damage is relevant, it's relevant. In the meantime, the card draw is the giant bolded text that you have on the death rattle for Blood Mage.
Isn't the spell damage the bolded part? Yeah, dummy.
Well, that's what I'm saying is you're ignoring that part now.
Okay.
You're redefining the text yourself.
It's just funny because everything on the card except draw a card is in bold. It's kind of amusing
That's the whole point I'm trying to make here.
Okay. All right. Deep breath.
No, I'm upset.
Oh well, let's talk about it.
Yeah, let's talk about.
Let's hash this out.
Let's. Go ahead. Let's start with you.
You're the one that has the problem. Hang
You
on.
know what my problem is. Oh, you're gonna get it.
Hell.
Seiko with Lens on 4. I think he wants the info of the cost adjustments, as well as the cheaper card draw options in hand. And Fino completes quest. The race has begun. Fino's got one of those hands I feel like that can be pretty pretty optional towards the end stages. With Double Nourish, you get to draw a lot of cards, and I think when you have Double Nourish, you are opening up the world where out-healing is possible.
Yep. Not only because you draw more heal cards by doing it this way, but because you get so deep in your deck that your Elise becomes active and your Zephyrus becomes active, and those two cards, Elise in particular, can then be used to create so much more healing. Like the ability to Elise a hand and then be able to Ferocious Howl twice in the same turn on the immediate turn afterwards, that alone, if you can set it up, can shut down the Holy Wrath into Holy Wrath line from Holy Wrath Paladin, and they then have to be looking for like additional Pyroblast off their Zephyrus, and then if you then duplicate a Hidden Oasis on top of those two Ferocious Howls, they're just not beating that.
One thing to look at this game is now that you have moved down the road is for Seiko playing that Suit Vendor early on. It didn't draw a card. He's using this now to draw a card, and he's got 2 Flash of Lights in hand.
Yeah.
That could have been extra cards, and so keeping note of how fast he makes that progress, I think, is going to be important.
Behold, jewels of the sun.
This is going to be some very fast card draw for Fino here, though. If anything, he might just race Seiko to the bottom of the deck, depending on exactly where Seiko's hand stalls out. Because that's the thing with Holy Wrath Paladin. Almost always stalls out at some point. It's just what you're able to do to mitigate that.
And now those extra cards are looking vital.
Yeah.
It's got a lot of extra life in the meantime, though.
Only relevant if Fino's on a pressure plan.
Seiko got through the turn 7 very cleanly as well. Normally one of the most troubling turns that you have with Paladin.
I just realized that's the secret. You just flip cards with Prismatic Lens to the point where they add up to 7, and then you're golden.
Yay! So for Seiko here, I believe the concern is if you Shrink Ray, there could be a Floop Cenarius. Like that to me seems like the biggest worry from Seiko's perspective.
Sure.
That's a bit unlikely. So I guess is how much can you account for that? How much can you risk? And what do you do in the meantime?
Well, the answer to the meantime question would be timeout more often than not. So that's the consideration. Do you want to wait to potentially have a full sweep and use timeout to be able to do that?
Well,
Seiko says yes. Note where that Hammer of Wrath went, by the way. Very important.
I must move quickly.
interested in preserving the True Silver. Is that because he's going to clear?
I'd expect so, yeah. Means the True Silver can go face if he's going to be able to clear the board. He's already seen both Sentinels, and this is the Cenarius, so taunts are limited at this point. They're limited to the card that he's just kind of struggling if he sees, which is the Hidden Oasis, right? Because if there's a Hidden Oasis, all this early game damage that he's doing is completely irrelevant anyway. Yeah, hate to see that card as a Holy Wrath Paladin player.
Note that Fino used the right side one, actually relevant.
Very relevant. Elise now changed in order to duplicate cards in sequence from left to right in your hand. So if Fino left himself with a hand where he didn't have that Ferocious Howl on the left and did have the Ferocious Howl he just drew, it's very difficult, nigh on impossible, to get that Ferocious Howl to be duplicated in good time. Whereas since the two healing cards are on the far left of his hand right now, he can play Elise with only a couple of hand spaces open and still achieve the desired effect.
It's the biggest water bottle I've ever seen on Seiko.
I didn't see
I took
it.
a sip of water. It's just a gigantic water bottle.
Okay.
I don't know. It was just so sudden in the middle of your explanation that it was like this hilarious comedic effect to the size of the water bottle.
Seiko rewarded, though. Finds the Pyro to go with the full clear. And there was Cenarius number 2 to threaten the Shrink Ray as well. And there you see where this damage is interested in going from Seiko. Fino needs to find this Elise.
I'm very worried that Seiko's at a card draw left. I mean, we're looking at 6 cards. There's one Prismatic Lens. There's another True Silver Champion.
No, True Silver's in hand.
Oh, I'm sorry, it's in hand. Apologies. So equality, consecrations, like there's just not that much card draw left in the deck, and so he's got to find a way to get through 6 turns of this.
Yep.
Because this is a matchup where you often need both Holy Wraths.
The Zephyrus is now active as well. But does he need that to be bonus damage at the end of the game? Can he use it to clear, to buy time? I think it's one of the biggest things that no one's really found a way to get Zephyrus to cooperate is that when you are playing a combo deck, a lot of the time you would just love your Zephyrus to draw cards. But because you're playing a combo deck, you have 6 or 7 cards in your hand at minimum most of the game. Zephyrus does not understand you want to draw cards if you have that many cards in your hand. You need a borderline empty hand to be able to make that happen.
Ooh, that's a lot of damage.
4, 8, 13 plus 6 is 19. Swipe in hand, 23.
I mean, Seiko, he has to draw a timeout or an equality.
Prismatic lens into those things, yeah. Is there anything that would make that cheap enough if
I mean,
you found it that way around?
There's still a Shivala in the deck, too.
Oh,
so
jeez.
Shivala the only minion, actually?
Fino says, I know where this swipe's going. I certainly don't want it in my hand taking up space. I'm gonna play my cards.
Nothing. It's Zephyrus time.
He has to nether. Well, 2 options. He has to nether, or he takes a 1 in 5 to land 25 damage right now.
Your wish is my
I don't know which one's better, honestly. I really don't.
The 1 in 5, if he hits 25 damage, he outright wins the game because he then follows that up with Zephyrus Soulfire for lethal. He literally wins the game on the spot 20% of the time there. Is he above 20% favored?
I don't know. Cards left in Fino's deck. I'm sorry, Seiko's deck. Timeout. Consecration. Prismatic Lens. Equality. So Fino's thinking about that. He knows that Seiko can make this a 66% chance if he wants to. So it's time to take some action against that.
He certainly does not need both Hidden Oasis in his hand to duplicate anyway, so that first one is just kind of free. Speaking of free, it was a free turn for Seiko, but I'm afraid free turns are kind of in favor of Fino right now because he's the one that's still trying to look for that Elise in his deck. If he can play an Elise this game and not die immediately on the next turn, I think it's just over.
Well, you got to think about Seiko's spot, too. Like, is it free because he's timeouting, or is it free because he's not facing on lethal? Like, if you don't do anything here, bad things can happen.
Yeah.
If you time out, bad things can happen.
I don't think you time out. What happens with Zephyrus if you don't time out here? You die, right?
Well, there's only 1 swipe left on Fino's side.
Well, there's just 10. There's 10 facing him down plus the spell damage if he doesn't time out this turn. So you're dead to Zephyrus Avenging Wrath because you're not playing any minions.
Ah, that's always the one. It's always Avenging Wrath.
Yeah, I mean you introduced that to my thinking yesterday. I really hadn't been considering it.
Oh
until
boy.
now.
It's time to test.
It's gonna go.
I think
He's taking a 25% to this turn.
make
No?
that 40. Nope, different line.
He wants the 25, put his opponent to 1. Okay, hang on. So 60% of the time he draws a non-Shivala card next turn.
He's going for the back-to-back.
Yeah, so this is 60% lethal.
Not necessarily, no.
No, because then he still has to hit. So it's 60 by 50 by 50. So it's 15% lethal? Is
So,
that accurate?
Let's just assume he doesn't draw the Shivala, right?
Yeah.
So then the first Holy Wrath is 50-50. Second one is 33%.
Yes.
So with this line, he's taken 1/3 of half.
Yes.
That's if he doesn't draw. It's we assume he doesn't draw the Shivala. 40% of the time, he draws Shivala, and he can't close.
Correct. And crucially, so we can't just weigh statistically what he can do this turn versus what he could have done on the previous turn or the next turn, because he's getting himself the additional bonus here, which is that he hasn't seen the Elise. If he hasn't seen the Elise, he knows Fino can't play 2 Ferocious Howls in the same turn. If he waits to the point where Fino can play 2 Ferocious Howls in the same turn, he can't win at that point.
He's thinking about Zephyrus. He's thinking about the Elise coming down and putting him out of range. Like, he's taking the risk, assuming, like, Fino's hand range.
I don't know. That was an absurdly close call, but that is a logical play. Whether or not it was mathematically the best win rate, I don't know. Don't pretend you know either, because you don't.
Yeah, if you want to sit down and calculate it, that's easy to do.
Right.
You can do that. But here we go. Holy Wrath number 1. It clocks
25!
Fino for 25, and now 1/3 of the time, Seiko can win the game on the spot.
2/3 of the time, he draws a non-Shivala card next turn.
But here's the thing. He has not seen Fino use an Elise yet, and both Howls are gone.
Right.
So in the event that Hidden Oasis is what comes down, oh my goodness! Oh my goodness!
Okay.
Just for 4. So now, Fino has to heal. He has to answer Shivala. He's down to 5. If he goes down to 5, he's not committed to having to heal, because there's no damage left in Seiko's deck afterwards. It's all minion pressure.
I'm not sure that True Silver swing is ever relevant. I feel like Seiko probably wins a fraction of a percentage more often if he holds onto it for board control.
Elise still not active. Seiko was in a tough spot. He made a bold call. And now for Fino, the game is solvable.
Yep. Peep your deck tracker, figure out what all of these cards are, beat them with your hand.
What to do? Time waits for no one.
I don't know if it's double surgery or not. This is the one I was actually afraid of. The reason why this line scares me is because if Seiko has Equality, Consecration, and Shivala on this turn, your hand does not present a direct answer to a Shivala. However, if you force out the Equality and Consecration, which is kind of what he's doing right now...
Then you play Hidden Oasis and the game is locked.
Ah.
Yep. What a game. What a game. Someone, please do run all the numbers on that previous turn and send them to me.
Oh, you think I'm not going to go home and do that promptly?
I mean, if that person is you, fantastic.
Woo! I'll tweet at you.
Okay, great.
Need a hand, Explorer?
Just in case you needed the innervate for security. You're like, by the way, you get to heal right now.
Yeah, that's game. Super interesting series, but it's Fino now with a huge victory, which means he matches Seiko's record after looking like he was absolutely stranded through the early weeks. You brought it up multiple times. All he has to do is do the same thing he did in the front half of Season 1 in the back half of Season 2, and then he's fine.
Not even to the same degree.
Yeah.
It's easier than it was in Season 1, because in Season 1, he was 9-0.
It's harder than it was in Season 1, though, because his group got kind of insane.
No, and he definitely didn't have any sort of, like, anything weighing on his mind whatsoever, like relegations being in place and being last place in division. That definitely was not a factor either. Like, this match was exciting for a number of reasons, and I think it brings you depth into how much hand reading goes into playing a combo match like this, and then the other side of it as well. Like, both players are terrified of what the other can do constantly in these situations where the game ends on a single turn. And so when that's the case, like, you're going to see these massive deviations like we saw right here. And so I'm kind of happy that we see this deviation, because I think if you look at it from a top-down perspective, there's a lot of arguments for taking that kind of deviation.
Yeah, I think that's the part that really excites me about the line that Seiko took. Again, no idea whether it's right or wrong. I'm not ashamed. I'll put that out there. I don't know. I will find out at some point. But because you can probably find a turn where he was mathematically more likely to win than the turn he did. But if it's any turn after that point, you kind of have to throw that out the window, because you don't know if Fino's response that exact turn was going to be Elise the Enlightened. At that point, it's too late to set anything up, because he's got 15 Ferocious Howls in his hand. Not quite that many, slight exaggeration for comic effect. So making sure he went off that turn when he felt like it was just slipping away, but not waiting that one extra turn, could have been the crucial outcome for Seiko. It was super interesting. I'm sure we will have much debate even after we go on air about what the correct line was in that game.
Yeah, so let's get some thoughts from Fino's side of it. Fino, can you hear us?
Yeah, guys, what's up?
Well, I'll tell you what's up is that last game was super exciting. I want to know what you were feeling when you saw that take place.
You know, when he did the double bunker on the Shrivala, I kind of had an idea that he wanted to go double Holy Wrath next turn, and he probably felt like he was behind, right? Because I had I could probably survive a turn by doing the Howl, and then with the Zephyrs, maybe I could find some heal, and my Elise wasn't active until the very end, so I was like, you know, I was very stressed out, and also I knew exactly his deck, so I knew that, you know, after that, the game was over, because I knew he only had Kong for damage, he had nothing else. But just because, like, I'm in this position that I am, I was like, maybe I'm forgetting something, you know, maybe, like, I'll miss this and I'll die if I play the double Surgers. And I was so stressed, but it was okay, though. It turned out well.
It was a really interesting game, because he had a 20% to the turn before, where if he'd have hit the one Holy Wrath, you would have died to Soulfire as well, because you were below the 29. So, like, his option of which turn he was going to take his huge risk.
Soulfire?
Yeah, it's like Zephyr's Soulfire at the end of the turn.
He nethered. Oh, you mean the turn?
Yeah,
he
before
nethered.
that turn, he had a 20% chance to win the game. Yeah, if he'd have gone off
But
with
that
the
was
bunker.
That was very low, though, right? Because he had a lot of cards then.
Yep.
And he would only have one Shrivala, so yeah, it seemed super low.
Yeah, I think both of his lines are just low in that scenario.
Yeah, I think he had to take a risk on some turn, and the one he chose was super interesting.
So now you
I don't know. After that start, I'm not gonna lie, I thought I was dead, because like that was probably like that was probably the fastest start I've ever seen from a Paladin, or like one of the fastest. And I mean, my hand was okay. I had the Nuris, which was why I thought I was still in the game. But yeah, he was too fast on drawing cards.
And so now we're in the back half of the season, and you're starting to battle back. You know, the first half, it did not go your way, and you lost to Seiko the first one, and now you've put up 2 wins in a row. You beat Seiko on this one in very similar matchups to what y'all had faced instead.
I feel this was the most important game of the season for me, right? Because I mean, now we're on the same score, and now I'm not last, so you know, actually we're both last, but yeah.
How closely are you watching the other competitors who you're trying to battle back against and overtake them? Are you watching those matches closely, or how are you keeping a good balance?
I'm watching them, but I'm not watching them like caring what they do. I just want to watch Hearthstone and see how people play and stuff. Yeah, we watch it together with the people that I practice with, and I think that's better than actually playing the game, because you see so many, like, for example, I had so many games at the start of this season where I was like, oh, I played so well and I got unlucky and I lost. And then I jump in a call with like Hunter Ace and Boar and Orange and Mazin Saiyan, and then be like, what did you do there? Like, why did you do that? You literally lost the game because you did that. And I was like, well, you're right, you know? Like, if you watch the games closely, you can see so many things that, I mean, no offense, but not even you guys see. It's like...
Nope. No offense taken. We got a lot going on.
Yeah. Like, analyzing the games deeply, I feel that helped me a lot. Like, because it also took me out of the mindset that I was unlucky, because that's actually the worst mindset to be. You know, I'd rather know that I made mistakes and I got punished for them, rather than be, oh, I got unlucky here, 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 and here, so I lost.
Right.
So yeah, shout out to the boys for helping me out with this.
Yeah, Admirable and myself don't spot as many plays as the combination of Fino, Orange, Hunter Ace, Saiyan, and Muzzy. That's not a controversial statement. You don't have to worry about that.
No, I take great offense to that.
So I want to ask you one more thing, which is the pick and ban stage. Kind of like a weird mirroring thing happened. Like, do you have any thought on what happened during that?
I have no idea what happened there.
Okay.
I was like, he's gonna protect Priest, I'm gonna protect Priest, then I'm gonna ban his Druid, and then he protected Paladin, which, I don't know, kind of makes sense, but like, I wasn't really expecting, because I wasn't even gonna ban the Paladin. So it's like, it was kind of weird to me that he protected it. I think it was actually, I don't think it was good. I think it gave me some... Because also, like, the game that I lost, like, even Druid against Shaman is, like, very close, and he doesn't have the former charms, so I even thought I was, like, slightly favored. But, actually, I think I played that game well. I don't know what you guys... If you guys remember that game. I think I played it well, but I don't know if I could have done anything to not die.
It's all
The
range
Shaman
play.
versus Druid game.
You can go back and look at the turn you use the second Lodi, and there's like an option for Howl and Hidden Oasis, but you have to pick a stance on one way or the other, and I think if you take the Hidden Oasis line, you get punished by other things, and if you take the line you took, you get punished by damage. So I think both ways, it's like, that's just a weird math problem of random outcomes.
Mm-hmm.
It's when you have to sit down and calculate. You're not doing that in 90 seconds.
Yeah. Anyway, it was so weird, because I was expecting a completely different, like, outcome on the ban and pick. Like, I was expecting... I banned his... we both protect Priest, which didn't happen. Then I banned his Druid, which I ended up banning his Priest, because, like, it's Priest, you know? I don't know what people are doing. I actually don't know what people are doing not protecting Priest. Priest has, like, 0 unfavorables. It's just... Whatever, man. Okay.
If you
I'm
could
not
just
gonna go too deep on
send
this.
that memo out to all the EU players, like, it's Priest, by the way. Just make sure everyone
I
is
don't get
fully
it,
aware
like-
of that. Okay.
People are like, I'm gonna queue into Warrior. Yeah, okay. Like, Warrior matchup is fine. It's not like it's super Warrior favored, and it's the only one that's close. Everything else is Priest favored. So I don't understand, but okay.
Yeah, well, I mean, call them out. I mean, I feel like I've been preaching up here about that for every time it's happened now.
Yeah,
I'm like,
you know what? I'm gonna call out Orange because he protected his stupid mage. I don't know if he won or lost, but that seems like a good call out.
Get him!
All
Get him,
right.
Fino! Punish them!
That seems like as good a spot as any to end the show, right?
That is just beautiful. Fino, anything else you want to say before we let you go?
Well, I hope I'll talk to you guys tomorrow.
There you go.
Amen, brother. All right, it's good talking to you, Fino. I'm glad you're turning things
Yeah.
around and putting up a battle here because it's making it very interesting as we close the season. Congratulations, everyone, and maybe we'll see you tomorrow.
Yes, yeah, guys.